Hey guys, Stealth here and welcome to episode 46 of War on the Sea. This is going to be the last episode of this series. Now, I know that that's going to disappoint quite a few people, but there are a few reasons why I will not be continuing this series. In a way, I've kind of won. It's just getting torn into a drawn-out fight. Here's my reasoning. If I go into the summary and I look at my losses, I have lost a few ships. I have totally lost 16 ships. That's it. I've lost 66 aircraft, but, well, with all due respect, I don't care that much about the aircraft, as long as they're not on aircraft carriers, because they got magically replaced anyway. So 16 ships sunk on my part. Enemy losses, far, far, far worse. Just look at that huge list. They have lost 188 ships. That's about 12 times the number that I have lost. 13 times even. This means that the Japanese currently have very few ships left. If I go through the classes, you're going to see exactly what they have, and it's not much. The Type B1s, there is, I believe, one alive. Yeah, just the I-17 is still out there somewhere. The Type B2, the I-40. That means that the Japanese are down to 2 submarines. That is down from their original 26. Alright, next class. Momi class. Quite a few of them are still alive. These little buggers are annoying because they're usually part of the 3 group or the 3DD wave that keeps coming out of Rabaul. So the Momis have been hit hard. Minakazis have been hit hard. The Wakatakis, 1 ship alive, the Asagao. Kamikazes, 1 ship alive, the Hatakazi. Matsuki, there's just 2 of those left. Fubuki, I think I sunk almost all of those. Yeah, they have about 4 of those left. And that's 4 left out of the original 20, so I almost decimated an entire ship class. The Akatsukis are all gone. Hatsuharu's all gone except for the Yugure. Shiratsuyu's all gone except for the Kawakazi. Asashios, still a few still a few of those alive. Kagero, they have a load of those. So if I were to continue playing, you can bet your ass that we're going to see a load of those things. Now this just keeps going, especially the destroyer waves, because they keep saving their what was it, the Fubukis? No, the Kageros and the Yugumos. They still have a ton of those. Akazukis, they still have a ton of those. This is my frustration with the game. They can keep sending out wave after wave after wave of ships. Destroyers, mostly. Because their light cruisers are all dead. Well, except for the Agano class, but I don't think I've ever seen one of those. The Oyoto class is still alive. That's the only ship in that department. The Furutakas are dead. The Aubas are dead. Miyoko's, the Haguro is still out there somewhere. Takaus are gone. Mogami's are gone. Well, one of them is unavailable, the Mikuma. Tone's both dead, the Tone and the Chikuma. Then the Kongos, 2 of them dead, 2 of them alive. And finally, Yamato, 1 dead, 1 alive. And that only leaves the aircraft carriers, Shokaku and Zuikaku, both are alive. But supposedly, they don't come out until the point where you capture Guadalcanal. And that leads me to another frustration with this game. I understand that islands don't get captured in a day or 2. But I think it was around episode 15 or something that I deployed forces in Guadalcanal. Which means that since then, I recorded about 30 episodes. Now, say that the average episode is 30 minutes. That already puts it at 15 hours of gameplay time. And I still haven't taken Guadalcanal. And that's 15 hours of gameplay time, not even counting me fast forwarding. And that's also not counting the 20, 30, well, somewhere between 20 and 30 hours that I spent not recording because there wasn't anything interesting going on. It was just me sending ships back and forth. This taking forever to deploy and capture islands is getting frustrating. And it's one of my major issues with this game. You only get resupplied at your base once a week. Now, supposedly there are other YouTubers out there who have done editing of their save file to get more supplies, troops, engineering, and fuel. If you have to resort to editing a save file, then I'd say something has gone wrong with the game. Because it means that it's, at least for content purposes, not great. And other people have already commented in the comment section of videos saying, Jesus, it's taking me forever to capture these islands, and I simply cannot bring the troops over fast enough. Supposedly early on in the game, when it had not been out for long, it was even impossible to capture Guadalcanal, simply because the Japanese kept spawning in new forces. Now, imagine that I have to do that for Guadalcanal, for the Rennell Island, which is still being, well, attemptedly captured by my forces. I have to do that for the Florida Islands, for Malayata. I have to recapture the Santa Cruz Islands. They also managed to drop off some forces at Port Moresby. They managed to drop off forces at Milne Bay. This is going to take months of in-game time. It's just me taking a destroyer, and I'm waiting for supplies to come in. This needs to be changed. They need to give you a bigger allowance weekly. Give me more troops, more supplies, more engineering, and more fuel. Because another frustration that I have with this game is that setting up a new base, let's say a new forward operating base, as I'm trying to do over here at Vella La Vella, to make sure that I don't have to go all the way back, it's very, very difficult. You need 600 fuel in total to get to a tier 3 port. Because first you need 100, then you need 200, and then you need 300. Now, engineering and fuel are the resources that are hardest to come by, because you only get 100 a week. I understand that it would not be beneficial for gameplay if you suddenly dump 300, 400, 500 a week on a player, because at that rate you could very quickly set up forward operating bases and very quickly overwhelm the enemy. And I suppose that, especially considering the fact that I don't have access to the Baltimore class yet, the Baltimore is said to come in April 15, 1943, which is still 7 months away from my current campaign date. It seems like the campaign is supposed to go on for this long. I don't know if that's a good thing, because I don't want to be hunting down destroyers for the next 6 months. That feels like a big waste of time. As I'm trying to intercept these destroyers, by the way, I have task forces operating in the Solomon Sea. Pretty much on the line of Bougainville to, let's say, the S of the Solomon Sea marker. This line frequently sees destroyers. But when I spot a destroyer group, the game goes, oh, you need to have an encounter and this needs to be resolved. I cannot ignore it if it's a surface ship group. That is, if it is one of my surface ships group. If it's a submarine that gets detected or that does the detecting, then it's fine. I can ignore it. I can pick and choose who I want to engage with the submarines. However, the surface ships start at such a great range of the enemy that it is very difficult to find them at all. And considering that you cannot launch spotter planes during a battle, well, you're basically left to your own devices, which is binoculars and radars. And then consider that, for example, these guys over here, Task Force 22, Amsterdam, Tallahassee, and Santa Fe, they have to do their level best to try and catch up with the destroyers. The cruisers can do, I think, 32 knots in excellent conditions. Destroyers can do that easily and usually more. And because of that, my destroyer or my cruisers just cannot keep up. When they actually do have an encounter, they usually waste so much ammunition trying to hit the target that after 2 or 3 engagements, so that's 2 to 3 groups of destroyers, they're out of ammunition and they have to be sent all the way back to here. And before you go, well, why don't you set up a forward operating base? See the previous few minutes of this video. I don't have the supplies, the engineering, and the fuel. I cannot set up another base even if I wanted to. What else? Yeah, the cruisers are inaccurate. The AI just keeps spamming units is what I wrote down. You have an encounter starts at 30,000 yards or something to that extent. And sometimes they don't. sometimes during a midnight encounter, I haven't had 2, 3, 4,000 yards away from my heavy cruisers. It's like these guys were suddenly not running radar whatsoever, and suddenly a destroyer group got the jump on them. I don't get it. It's inconsistent. Maybe it has to do with the weather, that you're suddenly in a, let's say, a sea state 6, maybe even a 7. You're in a storm and you can barely see each other. Okay, fine. But for now, it is so unpredictable for me that I cannot really base a strategy or a tactic on it. Now, what I would like to see improved about the game is pretty much the items that I have just covered. Give me more oil and more engineering supplies. Those things are critical to set up a new supply base. Because this thing is supposedly a World War II naval, I don't know, simulator / game. What I'm doing is running logistics. I'm constantly having these guys engage, and then usually it's at 20,000 yards out, and I try to open fire. I have a solution of 40. I waste a ton of ammo, and after 2 to 3 encounters, they have to go all the way back to base. So give me more opportunities to set up a forward operating base so I can resupply there. Alternatively, make it so that if I have a cargo ship with supplies, I can send those out to a ship on the front line and just do a sea rep, do a replenishment at sea. That way I don't have to get my ships all the way home. Because I want to be doing battles, I don't want to be running a ton of logistics. Second, please make the AI not just send out wave after wave after wave of 3 destroyers. I'd rather have a group of 8 destroyers that actually poses a bigger threat than, well, death by 1,000 cuts of 3, basically. Because that's what it's currently like. You're just wiping out group after group after group. I found the fastest way to do it is to use aircraft carriers. It's sort of the cleanest way to do it. So what I tend to do is throw out a couple of dauntlesses, like a flight of 12. Do a dive bombing run on destroyers and send them home. Destroyers usually don't have enough anti-air to take out an aircraft, so I can send the dauntlesses back to the carrier, rearm, and strike again. And the aircraft carriers seemingly carry an infinite amount of ammunition for their aircraft. Which is nice, but it does mean that these things are so incredibly important that they're the only thing that you really have to keep on the front line at all times, or close to. Because if you send one of these things home, your whole logistics chain becomes influenced, because then you'll also have to start sending task forces like these home. So make sure that the AI sends out bigger waves of ships. I do like the fact that you have this viewer that says, hey, you've already sunk this many ships. But considering that I sunk everything but 2 battleships, 2 aircraft carriers, 1 heavy cruiser, and about 20 to 30 destroyers, while losing 16 ships, I think I kind of won the war. And I don't want this long, dragged-out encounter. Maybe make it so that, in order to capture islands faster, you can just send a ship over there and bombard it. Or, I don't know, some sort of new button that says support troops. Because if I do shore bombardment, it's going to just blow stuff up. It's going to reduce the level of a port or an airport to a lower level. The way that the ships are operating right now, I have a lot of points, I have a lot of ships, and for example, I could park a light cruiser or even a heavy cruiser off of Guadalcanal, and the troops could call in support from the cruiser / battleship, whatever it is. And that way you can speed up the capture, but it's just not happening. I just cannot do that. So, overall, I enjoyed the game in, let's say, the early to mid game. Early to mid game, there were still task forces out there, especially in the Coral Sea. The Musashi was at some point, I think, hit by a submarine about 15 to 20 episodes ago. She's not been seen since. No idea where she went. She hasn't tried to engage anywhere. She might be back to repairs, but she's not listed as R, which is repair. So she is definitely still out there somewhere, but I don't know where. It's like the AI just forgot about her. When you're getting into late game with this game, it becomes such a grind. And I think it's pretty easy to fix. Give me more supplies, give me more oil, give me more engineering, and most importantly, give me more troops. Don't make me do this whole, I'm going to do 15 episodes of taking down 3 destroyers at a time, because it is getting so boring. Because of these frustrations, I have gotten completely fed up with the game. And, well, maybe my, my rant up until this point kind of gave that away. I will not be doing the Japanese campaign. It might be more interesting, but I am just done with the game. I know that there are mods out there. I know that the Tokyo Express mod is out there. It's probably going to make the game a lot more interesting, but I am just done with it for now. I'm going to play Age of Sail for a bit, so that's Ultimate Admiral Age of Sail, and hope that I have a lot more fun with that, because this, promise though it does have, it still needs some improvements. So, a bit of a sad end to this campaign. Still, I hope you guys had fun with the game and watching it. Again, it has promise, but it still needs some work. So, right now, for the current price tag of, I think it is about 40 bucks, I'm very hesitant to recommend it. Early game, good. Mid game, good. Because you're constantly on edge, and you're constantly reassigning your forces and trying not to take too many losses, because it's still a fair fight. But at some point, it just becomes this slog, and that's not something I like. So, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the scenes and the battles so far, and that you'll join me for other games, because for me, War on the Sea is done. Thank you for watching. I'll see you soon for another video.